Good morning out there. We are here at 20 Minutes at the Table. My name is Brad Kaler. I'm so glad you guys are joining us for this very first edition of 20 Minutes at the Table. The idea is I'm right here at my kitchen table during my social distancing, and it's just fun to be together, however we can be together virtually, and just talk about what's going on in the world, what's going on maybe locally here in my town of Brockport, and how we can live out our faith together during these really unique times. So a little bit about me while we get started and while we wait for people to join on the live video feed. My name is Brad Kaler. I am the husband to the amazing Erin Kaler. We've got 3 boys, we've got a dog, and we are, all of us, just like you, trying to figure out how to survive by living inside of the same 4 walls all the time and not going anywhere, not going to school, not going to work, all the stuff that everybody else is dealing with too. I'm also the pastor of Christ Community Church. And so I want to say hey to all my Christ Community Church folks out there. Maybe you're not part of the church, but you're just part of the community, or a friend invited you, or you just found this video in some other way. I just want to say hey, good morning. I'm so glad that you guys are checking this out. We are going to talk about what's going on in the world. We're going to talk about social distancing, quarantine, mass panic, no toilet paper, all of it. No, we're not going to talk about all of it. We're going to talk about a couple of helpful things, hopefully some stuff that puts a smile on your face. And about 20 minutes together this morning here at the table. We'll highlight and say real quick that I've got these delicious chocolate chip muffins that my wife made me. I'm not going to eat all 4 of these, but we made enough for everybody, but I can't send them through the screen Willy Wonka style today. But we want to talk today about some stuff that's going on in and around our world. I want to share a couple things that put a smile on my face. Of course, just some interesting stuff going on in the news. Lots of bad news out there, but also some cool stuff going on too, because people are finding that in the midst of all the challenges we're facing, there are also some really cool creative opportunities out there. So I want to talk about Tom Hanks for a second, because many of you, like myself, saw that Tom and his wife Rita ended up coming up positive with the coronavirus in Australia. They've been quarantined. My understanding is they're resting up and doing well. And of course, it's not putting a smile on my face that they have coronavirus, but it did put a smile on my face when actor and Toy Story co-star Tim Allen, who does the voice for Buzz Lightyear, tweeted the day after Tom and his wife put out on social media that they were positive for coronavirus. Tim Allen tweeted, "I told Tom and Rita that Buzz offered a couple spacesuits for them if they needed them, assuming for quarantine. Seriously, rest up and get well." And just love to see 2 actors that I really love and enjoy and have followed over the years, loving each other, encouraging each other, putting a smile on our faces, knowing that they are supporting each other. And oddly enough, one of the things Erin and I have been doing with our boys to stay busy during this social distancing is we've been playing Toy Story Monopoly. It was a gift somebody gave us recently. And it's funny, with all this free time, we actually have enough time to finish a whole Monopoly game, which is insane, right? But we've been enjoying that, and that story put a smile on my face seeing Tim Allen reach out to Tom and his wife. I want to highlight real quick a local story right here. I live in the town of Brockport. If you're just joining us, my name's Brad Kaler. I'm the pastor of Christ Community Church right here in Brockport, New York. And this past week we had something cool happen. Jimmy Z's, it's a local Brockport restaurant on Main Street. They serve garbage plates. Now, if you're from the Rochester area or you're kind of familiar with New York, you know what a garbage plate is. If you're joining us from out of state or somewhere else and you have no idea what it is, let me explain what a garbage plate is. You take mac salad, fries, and then you put either a cheeseburger, hamburger, or some hot dogs on top of it. And then you pour this meat sauce. When you say meat sauce, it's hard to really get how delicious this is. But anyway, then you can cover it in ketchup and mustard. And I don't know, I like to just chop it all up and eat it, get a scoop of everything on one scoop of my fork. And it's amazing. You eat it, you feel full and sick, but with a smile on your face for days after. And anyway, garbage plate is awesome. If you haven't enjoyed one, go ahead and get one. But Jimmy Z's, a local Brockport restaurant who serves garbage plates, they were out on Tuesday between noon and 5 p.m. this last week, giving away free mac salad and a free roll of toilet paper to everybody who passed by on the sidewalk, which I just thought was really, really cool, really generous. And, one roll of toilet paper and a side of mac salad doesn't change anybody's life, but it certainly put smiles on some people's faces. And I just think it's cool that Jimmy Z found that amidst the challenges, there's an opportunity to do something to make people smile. And he did it. And that's so important because maybe you and I can't give 160 rolls of toilet paper away or even 6 rolls of toilet paper away. But we can find opportunities, and the list is getting smaller and smaller of things we can do, right? But we can look for opportunities in our day to serve other people. Even if we help one person, even if we put a smile on the face of one person, that's a big deal. I don't know if you've been out to the grocery store or gas station lately. Not a lot of people are smiling right now. And if you can do something that puts a smile on somebody's face, that is a huge deal. I want to encourage you to do that. I also want to talk today together about how to live out our faith in these really interesting times. And so I want to say quickly again, if you're just joining us, I'm the pastor of Christ Community Church. If you want to check out more about our church, you can go to cccbrockport.org. And actually, if you go to our website on the homepage, you can click on Access the Live Stream, and that'll take you to one of the versions of where we're broadcasting live today. But also on that website is a really unique spot. There's actually two sections that I want to highlight real quick. On the left-hand side, it says, I need help. And there's a little form you can fill out there, especially if you're local around Brockport. Our church would love to know if there's some way we can serve and help you. There's, again, limited possibilities of things we can actually do now that we're kind of on this New York pause deal. But if there's something we can do to serve and help, we would love to know about that. So if you want to fill that out, you need help, just let us know. And then there's also on the right-hand side a spot that says, I'm here to help. If you have a creative idea, if you're like, hey, I feel like I could do blank to help people out there, and we want to hear about it and want to try to connect those dots if we can during these weeks of social distancing and quarantine. If there's something we can do to help, we'd love to try. Okay, so living out our faith. Again, many of you are joining because you're part of our church. Maybe not all of you, maybe not even all of you watching this video right now even have like a faith or belief in Jesus. But for me, I'm feeling like the thing I need most, and maybe you too, is I need to cling to my faith during this time because I don't really know what's going to happen a week from now, a month from now. None of us know, right? We're really hoping that at some point we'll get back to a normal, daily routine, right? But I know for sure, for me, I'm clinging to my faith and clinging to the belief that I don't have all the answers and I don't know what the future holds, but I know a God who does have the future in his hands. And so I want to talk today about our faith, how to live out our faith, and I'm calling this little encouragement, dealing with dis. You're not hearing me wrong. I didn't mean to say this and mispronounced it or have a typo in my notes. No, dealing with dis, D-I-S. Dis is a Latin prefix in the English language, and it starts at the beginning of a lot of nasty words in our language. But dis, the prefix, means apart, asunder, away, or having a negative or reversing force. And so you can think of a lot of words that start with dis, and I'm thinking of three in particular that I'm dealing with during this time of social distancing. I'm thinking of disruption, disappointment, disconnection. I'm feeling disrupted. I think you are too, probably. Like all the normal things I was looking forward to. When 2020 started, I expected March to look different than this. But that all got disrupted, right? So much can change. Even just in a week's time, a lot has changed. I'm dealing with the disappointments of things that I thought would go differently, things that were going really well and now got disrupted, and now I'm disappointed in what's going on. I'm certainly dealing with the disappointment of how many people who are suffering all across the world from coronavirus and the symptoms and effects of it. And I'm definitely dealing, as an extrovert, I'm dealing with the disconnection because I love being around people, and as a pastor, I love being with people. I love being together on Sunday morning and getting to shake hands and hug and say hey to a bunch of people that I love, and we just can't do that right now. And so I'm dealing with at least those three disses. Maybe you have your own disses that you're dealing with, but we're going to talk about these three today together, and we're going to talk about John 11. Don't worry, I'm not going to get too preachy. I'm just going to break this down really simple. I was reading this just in my own personal study this week, and it really jumped out at me as something that maybe could put a smile on your face and help give you a little more hope and peace this week. So in John 11, here's what's going on. There's this family that Jesus really loves and has hung out with a bunch of times. It's two sisters and a brother, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Lazarus is such a cool name. But Mary and Martha and Lazarus are friends of Jesus. And in this particular story, Lazarus gets sick. In fact, seriously, deathly ill. And the sisters write to Jesus. I'm just picturing like more in a modern context, like Mary and Martha just like opening up a group text. Yo, Jesus, your boy Lazarus is not doing so well. You got to get over here and do something, because they've seen Jesus perform miracles for people who were sick so many times, and people who weren't feeling well. Jesus would reach out, touch them, speak a word to them, whatever it was, and boom, they'd be instantly better and healed. And they're expecting Jesus to do the same thing he's always done, which is touch their current situation and make it better before it gets worse, before it's beyond repair. But in this story, Jesus handles it a little differently. I want to check this out together. When Jesus got the text from Mary and Martha, it says in John 11, verse 4, Jesus heard about it. He said, Lazarus' sickness won't end in death. So Jesus gets the text from Mary and Martha, and he's like, oh man. But his buddies, the disciples, are hanging around, and he's like, dudes, I just found out Lazarus is sick, but don't worry, he's not going to die. His sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God, so that the Son of God could receive glory from this. And although Jesus loved Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, he stayed where he was for the next 2 days. He gets an urgent message from Mary and Martha, and stays there for 2 days. And I just can't help but notice the disruption for Mary and Martha. Who knows what kind of family plans they had? They might have had a party. They might have had a vacation planned. And now their brother Lazarus is sick, deathly ill. It's a major disruption to them. But Jesus, oddly enough, looks at it and goes, but that doesn't disrupt my plans. Now, I want to be really careful today. This morning, I want to make sure that I'm crystal clear. I'm not suggesting in our context today that the coronavirus is something that Jesus is like, that's no big deal, right? I'm not suggesting that Jesus caused it, that Jesus is happy about it. I'm not suggesting any of that. What I am suggesting is that in the midst of our context, we feel like so many things are urgent, but God sees the end in mind. And so that's the perspective I'm coming from today, a perspective of faith, a perspective that God wins in the end and we win with him, okay? Getting back to my notes here, I see here in these verses I just read, that says, although Jesus loved Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. And I think that's something I want to key in on here. We're talking about disruption, the first dis. And when you feel disrupted, do you feel like, I don't know, what do you think God feels about your situation and your disruption, the emotions that you have about what you're going through? I'll just say it straight out. What I believe is that God knows and cares about your situation, whatever it is. However serious it is, God knows and cares about your situation. But I feel like it's important to zero in this text that even if Jesus didn't do anything else in this story, and he for sure did, and we're going to get to that, it's comforting to me to know that the text draws out Jesus loved Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. This was serious to him. He didn't take it lightly, even though he knew that the disruption wasn't going to end in Lazarus' death. And so I want to zero in on that and just say, God cares about your situation. In fact, in 1 Peter 5, verse 7, it says that we can cast our cares upon him because he cares for you. So I just want to encourage you this morning. God cares about you. You can cast your cares on him. You can deliver to him all the cares you have and emotions you have about your disruption. God cares for you so much this morning. I want to encourage you with that. But we're not just dealing with disruption, right? We're also dealing with disappointment. And so were Mary and Martha, because they sent the text to Jesus expecting him to show up right away. But Jesus delayed 2 days, right? And so they're disappointed now because not only did Jesus wait a couple days and not get back to them right away, but now in the 2 days, Lazarus has actually died. Not only died, he's gone through all the funeral arrangements, and now he is buried in a tomb, oddly enough, the same kind of tomb with the stone rolled over in front of it that Jesus would himself encounter after dying on the cross. And so we see Jesus finally says to the disciples, hey, all right, now it's time to go. He shows up in Bethany where Mary and Martha live. And it says in verse 21 and verse 32, both Mary and Martha come separately at different times and bring their disappointment to Jesus. If only you had, they say to Jesus, if only you had come sooner, my brother wouldn't have died. Man, if only you had is such a full and packed with emotion statement to make. And you've probably said that not just to God, but maybe to your spouse, maybe to a loved one, maybe to a coworker. If only you had done your part, this wouldn't have happened to me, right? If only you had blank. And I just think Mary and Martha, to them, Jesus' delay was a huge disappointment. They didn't think Jesus got the message. And sometimes it feels that way when we're praying, when we're crying out for something, or maybe you feel that way when you text something really urgent, and you're like, come on, you got to respond right away, but they don't have their phone on them, or their phone's on do not disturb or something crazy. And you're like, come on, I'm waiting for you right now to respond. That's how Mary and Martha felt. But Jesus took 2 days to get there, and it ended up disappointing them greatly because their brother died, and they thought it was beyond Jesus' help now. Now, I want to say this real quick about disappointment. Sometimes Jesus is willing to disappoint us in the short term so he can overwhelm us in the long term. Sometimes he's willing to disappoint us now so that he can overwhelm us and blow our expectations away later on. And from a perspective of faith, as a person of faith, that's how I'm choosing to live in this time. Even though I'm dealing with disruption and disappointment just like you are, I'm choosing to live from the perspective that in the end, God wins. And I guess, I could share some of my own personal disappointment. I mean, as a pastor, we started this year with tons of momentum. God was moving in our church. Our church attendance was growing. One of the coolest things that was happening in our church is the college across the street from us. We had tons of college students coming out every week. The last Sunday we met together publicly, we had 3 full rows of college students, and 5 college dudes lifted up their hands at the end of church to say, I want to begin a relationship with Jesus. I'm choosing to believe in Jesus today. We were celebrating all of that momentum, and then boom, the bottom dropped out. Now we can't meet. Now we're not together. But we're choosing to see this not just as a disruption, not as the end of what God was doing, but at the beginning of a creative solution of something new God's going to do, and that God's promises are still going to stand even in the midst of social distancing and everything being canceled and closed. And that's the perspective of faith I'm choosing to have in the midst of all this. Okay, the last dis I want to talk about is disconnection. And in the events of their brother dying, Mary and Martha could have pulled back, right? They could have said, you know what, Jesus, if you're not going to answer me when I call, I don't want anything to do with you. And that could have resulted in a major catastrophic disconnection in their relationship with God. But instead, they came close. Check out these verses in John 11 and verse 25. Jesus is talking to Martha. Martha has just said, if you had only been here, right? But you let me down, Jesus. But Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live even after dying. Everyone who lives in me believes in me will never die. Do you believe this, Martha? Right now, in this moment of disruption, disappointment, in the crazy events of your life that you didn't plan for yourself, but now it's here, do you still believe, Jesus said? And Martha responds, and I can just get that feeling like she just took a big gulp of just like swallowing her pride, swallowing the disappointment and the pain, and admitting what was true in her heart. Yes, Lord, she told him, I've always believed you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one who has come to the world from God. See, if they had run away and closed off their hearts, they wouldn't have seen what happens at the end of the story. And we're going to get to the good part right now. Jesus wept with intense emotion when he got to the grave of Lazarus. And, I just think for some of us, to see that Jesus loved Lazarus and showed that kind of emotion to the family that was there and the friends who were there, even that would be enough for us, right? To just know that God feels for you and for me and what we're going through right now. But that's not all. That's not where the story stops. In fact, Jesus unveiled God's power by overthrowing the ultimate dis, which is death. And it says later on in John 11 that Jesus said, roll this stone aside, open up this grave, he said. And they were like, wait a minute, you don't want to do that. And Jesus was like, didn't I tell you, you would see God's glory if you believe? So they rolled the stone aside. Jesus looked up to heaven and prayed, Father, thank you for hearing me. You always hear me. But I said it out loud for the sake of all these people standing here so that they will believe you sent me. And Jesus shouted, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound, grave clothes are all around him, his face wrapped up with a headcloth. And Jesus said, unwrap him and let him go. And this story is so beautiful because it's also a foreshadowing again of what Jesus would encounter himself going to the cross, being crucified, dying, being buried in a tomb just like this, but then resurrecting on the third day. And I just want to say this, that disruptions and disappointments can unveil God, his goodness and his power like few other things can. That's why in Romans 5, Paul says, we can rejoice when we run into problems, for we know that they help us develop endurance, and endurance develops strength of character, and character strengthens our confident hope of salvation. Check this out, Romans 5:5. And this hope will not lead to what? Disappointment. For we know how dearly God loves us, because he has given us the Holy Spirit to fill our hearts with our love. And so I just want to close out today. We could talk more and more, but I told you just 20 minutes today, that when you find yourself disrupted, disappointed, or disconnected, remember God is with you. Remember God loves you. Lean into that truth. Again, there's lots more we could talk about, but I want to sign off today and just say thanks for joining me here at 20 Minutes at the Table. I hope you enjoyed spending some time together. I'm going to be right back here in the same spot next Sunday at 10 a.m. I'd love to hear from you between now and then, though, what God's doing in your life, whatever stories you might have, whatever things you're hearing out there that put a smile on your face too. You can reach out to us on social media at Christ Community Church or at my personal social media at Brad Kaler, and let us know, and use the hashtag 20 at the table to let us know how you are being intentional during this time of all this free time. Praying for you this week that God's peace, love, and hope would protect you and keep you safe. Love you guys, and we'll see you next time.